In 2016, a new TV show hit the digital airwaves and needed a podcast dedicated to chronicling its adventures. An elite team has been assembled for this task. Unfortunately, the world's listeners have not heard of this wonder twin duo. And although they may not be known now, in the future they will be referred to as tomorrow's legends.
Hello, Legendaires. This is Jess, aka Harley Quinn, and I have a special bonus episode for you guys before we are officially back. Just a reminder, Legends will be premiering on October 22nd, so we have about a month and a half to go still. But in the meantime, I attended DragonCon this past Labor Day weekend, and for those of you that don't know, DragonCon is held locally here in Atlanta. It is one of the largest, actually I think it is the largest, multimedia pop culture convention, and it focuses on science fiction, fantasy, gaming, comics, literature. There's art, there's music, everything you could think of. It's just a ton of fun, and I encourage you, if you don't know what it is, you can always contact me for more information, but their website is dragoncon.org, and it has everything you pretty much want to know, lots of cool pictures. Check out the hashtags. They're all over Twitter and Instagram. DragonCon is known for its cosplay, so if you want to see some amazing costumes, definitely get on their Instagram feed, search hashtag DragonCon, hashtag DragonCon 2018. You will not be disappointed. There is so much to look at. But while I was there, I had the honor of participating in 3 different fan panels, which is extremely exciting. This was a first for me this year, but I signed up and they picked me, and I had a great time doing it. So it was a ton of fun. The 3 panels I actually ended up doing one for Legion, which I did record that one, and I may be releasing that as another bonus episode. I did one for Mr. Robot, which I actually didn't record. I didn't have my recorder with me that day. Lesson learned. And the third one, of course, I was very prepared for, because that was for our TV show Legends of Tomorrow. So that is the panel that you're about to hear. It's about an hour long. There were a total of 4 of us on the panel, but because it was such a small room, and apparently my recorder is pretty good, it picked up pretty much everyone in the audience. There were about, I want to say 10 to 15 people there, so it was a pretty small group, but as you'll hear, it was a great conversation, and we all had a ton of fun doing it. So a huge thanks to the American Sci-Fi and Fantasy track for putting that on. They do an amazing job. They're one of the largest DragonCon tracks. I think there were over 90 panels between guest panels, which are celebrity panels, and then the little fan panels that are done. They do an amazing job, and I just had a ton of fun. I spent a lot of time going to the things that their track covers. And then, of course, the people that do Legion is actually called the DragonCon X track, mostly for X-Files, but you can check them out as well. Both groups are on Facebook if you're kind of interested in learning more about what they're all about. But you can find more on the DragonCon website if you are interested. So definitely check that out, and really looking forward for Legends coming back. So without further ado, here is the Legends of Tomorrow fan panel from DragonCon.
We'll be in about 4 months.
Goodness gracious.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Since we've all been talking already.
Yeah.
We're all friends.
Now we're actually going to get on topic. How about that?
We started on topic.
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. How are we doing this?
You don't have like
I bet Matt was our moderator. And Matt is not here. So welcome. This is the Once Upon a Time panel. You're in the right place, right?
For sure.
No? All right. Legends tomorrow. All right. So as I start, I have to ask this question just because we were saying this earlier. There's a very... I have a feeling I know the answer because you're here at 10 a.m. on a Monday morning. But how many people in here are on the love Beebo, and how many are here on the hate Beebo? So first, love Beebo side.
Beebo is God.
Is there anybody on the hate Beebo side?
Oh.
Okay, so
Fired.
So that's just a question I had to ask to find out what is the feeling of the room before you really got into it.
I'm glad
No,
I'm not the
understandable.
only.
Yeah.
No, God, no. I saw that. I'm like, yeah, talk jumping the shark on this one. I was like, really? There's a big blue teddy bear going to save the day. Now for a 10-year-old, okay. Well, I can't say anything. I have a blue Captain America bear I bring everywhere to every convention, so I kind of get that. But
Surprised Beebo is your problem on that. How many sharks have we done? Yeah.
very true, especially with the time travel show.
Yeah, they've
I think it was the death metal season
Yeah.
that got me.
So we should probably go down and introduce ourselves. You know.
Sure. I'm Jess Combs. I do a Legends podcast called Tomorrow's Legends. So if you love Legends and you don't listen, come check us out.
I'm Jenna Johnson. I'm just going to say I'm a professional nerd. Currently, I do guest post on different blogs about different shows, Arrow being primary, a lot of MCU stuff, and I'm here for fun and frivolity.
Kristen Jackson, a graphic designer and director of communications for Frostbite Pictures. I just got off an entire month of 16-hour days of filming, so my retention of specific details about the show will probably need a trigger for recall, but I really love this series very much, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
And I'm John Paul Estes. Also have a podcast. Like it seems like almost everybody these days has one. Since we were just talking ages, I'll be turning 50 this year. So instead of being the Titans or the Teen Titans or the New Teen Titans, our podcast is the Old Titans. Me and my co-host we were in our 40s when we started it, but cover a little of everything from Legends and Beebos to Dragon Con and everything else in the world. So you can find us in the normal iTunes and other places. All right. So, anyone have any questions they wanted to throw out there? Like I threw out my Beebo one first.
If we didn't throw out Beebo, I was going to.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, since we brought up Beebo and two of y'all disliked Beebo, what was it about Beebo that y'all disliked?
He reminded me too much of a Furby.
Oh my gosh, me too.
I got very Furby-ish vibes, especially with the mannerisms that it spoke. And, being a kid of the 90s, I had 4 Furbies. But it was one of the things to be, play with them during the daytime versus being woken up in the middle of the night to one, shrieking at you. So that kind of brought back some very bad memories.
You sing the Silence of the Lambs song? Because mine sang the Silence of the Lambs song.
Nice. I finally got one of mine to cuss, so that was even better. So for a 10-year-old who has a cussing Furby, that is the greatest thing. Then my parents took it, so... but no, it kind of reminded me of that, but I also feel that there could have been a better written storyline as to how the Legends defeated this, heavy metal demon, other than a big blue cuddly teddy bear.
I like the Furby in the episode, but the way it became the savior at the end just kind of seemed a little too silly. I enjoy silly on this show because it's kind of a lighthearted approach to the DC world that, the other series kind of take a little darker like Arrow does and stuff.
A little?
A lot. But to have it in the episode, I thought that was great, Of course, if you were going back and you were a Furby or whatever society, and you saw one of these talking things, you'd be like, "Hey, that's got to be magic right there."
Oh yeah, especially
a god or a spirit or something.
When the Vikings first encounter this thing, it's oh my goodness, what is this?
Yeah, but then to use it as the key thing that saves the day just seemed like they jumped the shark on that one.
Yeah, I think that's what got me too, is I didn't mind it, when they first introduced it. I didn't love it, but I was like, okay, that's kind of fun. I thought it was kind of funny, with the Vikings, they're worshiping it. I'm like, yeah, that's amusing. And I liked the references, throughout the season when, Gary's Beebo socks, that was hilarious. So I loved the little callbacks, but then to have
that be what we turned into to defeat Mollis. It was just kind of a letdown. I mean, they built him up like all season, this big bad like time demon, and then we're gonna cuddle him to death. I don't know. I get it. It just.
It almost reminded me of just a teeny bit of the Buffy episode where you had the big fur or fear demon or something. Remember? And then he's like 2 inches tall, and they just step on him and squish him at the end. It almost, I thought that was funny, but it kind of reminded. It called me back to that episode, but in not like the bad way you take it.
Well, I'm glad I asked the question for the audience, since it seems like more people are on my side, because I feel like everybody's against me up here on this. But I loved Beebo. His first episode, it was just kind of a cute plot device. It was fun. You didn't know it was going to become something more. And then, like you said, the callbacks with the socks, even flying around on Flash, exploding on Flash, that was kind of cool. One that a lot of people miss is the Christmas episode, of course, is when they did the first Beebo episode, and time changed. Over on Flash for their Christmas episode, Cisco is decorating a tree that is Beebo blue. So just little things throughout. But everything this year has been so dark. And, especially, that's one of the biggest complaints for all the DC Universe stuff, especially cinematic. Arrow's so dark and Flash so dark. Legends is the one show you could turn to and know you're going to have fun. Even the dark episodes, you could find something to smile about and laugh about. And I don't know, the end of that episode, you don't see it coming. I mean, I don't think anybody saw that exact thing coming.
No. I definitely
Except, as soon as they're standing around, and in the Old West Saloon, my mind suddenly flashed back to the first Muppet movie when Animal drinks all the growing stuff and grows up out. And it was like, oh no, they're not doing that, are they? They're not doing that, are they? And I started getting chills.
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
One of them floated Ghostbusters. Who thought? I think it was Sarah said. Who thought of that?
The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Exactly what I thought.
I started getting chill bumps. It's like, no, they can't be. Oh, please, please, please. And then he bursts out from the street just like Animal bursts out. And honestly, it was the best moment of television I've had. And honestly, for those who are old enough to remember it, WKRP. Thanksgiving episode with the turkeys. To me, this is the funniest. Yes, I know. This was the best moment of television since the turkey episode, which definitely was not jumping the shark for WKRP. I mean, that was kind of where they hit the ground running.
Yeah.
So
I fell off the couch. I was laughing so hard.
It was great. So I want to bring one thing up. All right, so we have a bunch of these panels, Arrow and Flash and Black Lightning and all the rest. I went through kind of all of them, though I wasn't on all the panels, trying to figure out what was my favorite episode of each season. And with each show, it was not too difficult. I picked, like Midvale for Supergirl and other things like that. This is the one that over half of this page is my favorite episodes from Legends. I could not pick one. So what is y'all's favorite episodes, do y'all think?
I really liked how, aside from the crossover, of course, everybody is up to date with season 3 of Legends, right? Okay. Spoiler alert. Of course, after the crossover episode when Stein dies, that gutted me.
Oh, me too.
But yet to see him again in that Christmas episode when he was getting that Beebo doll for Lily, and I'm just like, I really like this version of this character. I said, let's go back and visit him more often. I really like seeing him in that aspect because we didn't get to see the younger Stein, the more carefree type person. We only got to see the stern, taciturn gentleman. And, while I loved Victor Garber being that, after in season 3 when he had that grandkid, that also brought back to that Christmas episode where he's more of the family oriented instead of work oriented. So I really like seeing that one.
My favorite is the Death Witch episode. With Sarah, mostly just like with the pieces with Sarah. I think that was also the Elvis. Was that the Elvis episode?
Yep.
Yeah.
That stuff was kind of like, it was a great episode, but it was kind of just like, that piece of it was like pretty filler, but I kind of liked it. But it was mostly, I loved like the Death Witch stuff.
That one reminded me a lot of Supernatural, like the early Supernatural shows.
It definitely had a supernatural vibe. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Constantine.
Constantine. Anything Constantine?
Yes.
Even Gary is Constantine. Yes, for anybody who didn't realize it, this is not Constantine. This is Gary as Constantine.
That's like your Castiel.
Yeah. Oh, it's you.
That's me. They let Ray drive the rider again.
Let's share up here. We're going through our favorite episodes right now. How about y'all? Does anybody have any favorite episodes they want to mention?
I probably should have said that.
Here we go, John.
Usually Groundhog Day is overdone.
It was perfect.
That was
Not for
the
this
way
show.
that they did that way.
So much fun.
I love Tala.
Tala's
Yeah, she's incredible.
That's the one though where if you weren't sure before the episode,
You liked her name.
that was it.
That was the hook
was it.
that all the fans were like, oh, that's why she's here. Okay.
I think for most people, it's probably with her and Little Ray, bonding. That was probably the one.
That too.
Yeah. And I will say that was, if I had to pick one, that's the one I'd pick, is the phone home.
Well,
that was probably my favorite.
Have you noticed that the adult Ray has gotten slightly more
dumb,
infantile since that episode? Like, he's definitely gone, like, aged down a little bit since they interacted with his younger self. He's gotten more just childlike.
Now I feel like I need to ask her.
See, I've always seen him kind of as a kid, even in
Even
in
Arrow.
It's
just like
a big grown-up fun.
It's got that childlike exuberance about
He doesn't have a lot of room to slide in that direction, though.
No.
But he does.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, we can talk about Ray for a second. I don't like how they've evolved his character over Legends. He's gotten dumber. They're not using, I don't feel like they're using his intellect as much.
No, definitely not.
You know what I mean?
And I kind of caught that. I'm new to Legends verse. I'd actually binged it like when season 3 was on Netflix, so I'm like that new. So like going back to that, I saw that after the whole what was her face? The whole relationship that he had with Hot Girl.
Right.
I saw that like that almost steady decline in his character after that happened.
Yep.
Well, he does keep getting kicked. I mean, every time he ventures out, tries to expand a little bit, they're like, "Oh yeah, hey, you're nice, but you, I mean, we might be seeing that as a defense mechanism, as I used to try to take things seriously, and let's see, Felicity. You just count them off as far as every time he thought he was established, someone new just walked in and walked away with him, and so building up walls.
I think the intellect part of it, though, can still exist. Showing his intellect can still exist while letting him get kicked and letting him kind of be the boy who needs to be wrapped up in a warm jacket and just like...
They did it a little with the fire.
And it's not though that they even brought somebody in kind of to overpower his intellect either. It's like they're just not showing intellect on the show anymore.
They allowed Stein to kind of overshadow him for a while. But now that he's gone, you are starting to see him and Jax are both gone, so you're starting to see that change. You almost kind of I got the feeling, just in general, that they really pushed the Stein and Jax relationship in the first half of the season for obvious reasons. Since now knowing that we all knew Victor Garber was leaving the show. I wasn't expecting them to kill him, and perfectly honest, I'm still bitter about it.
They weren't going to. They weren't planning on killing him. That was like...
But it worked so well.
That was the crossover thing. That was everybody else like, well, we have to kill someone. He's leaving the show.
So let's just, that makes me even more mad.
That's how they do it on the crossovers.
Well, now I'm mad.
I was really mad because it was Nazis and he's a Jew.
Ooh, yeah.
That really, I'm Jewish, and that was like, why would you? How dare you kill a Jewish superhero?
If he had died like doing something just a little more. I mean, let's face it, the way Captain Cold went out, That was
great.
That was a big, hey, I'm gonna kick my friend out of the way, and I'm gonna hit the button while everybody else runs, while they're dragging my buddy away. They didn't do that first time.
Yeah.
I mean,
they sort of almost did it, but it missed the mark.
Yeah.
We walked away from the topic, but even on Arrow, Ray was a little bubbly.
Yeah.
So there were no big transition because remember, he is a genius in terms of doing something, but he have very little
like
social
skills.
Yeah. So his EQ is like off the scale on the bottom, like he's bottoming out. And that's very big trope in a lot of sci-fi, where the geek have a huge IQ and zero EQ, and I love it about him in that show because it's very difficult to do sci-fi or genre comedy, and in my opinion, the Legend is genre comedy.
Absolutely. They didn't plan that from the beginning, I don't think, but that's
they tried not to.
I mean, but that's where they settled and it worked.
Especially after season 2, like start of season 2. Once you accepted the genre comedy, it's like totally changed the game. Because I was about to drop the show until this clip came in. It's comedy. It's not a.
I'm not gonna lie, I did drop it about episode 4, and then of course I picked it up a couple months ago. So.
But that's normal again. Ray is normally it's just a trope which shows high IQ, zero EQ.
But here's the problem I have with it. When's the last time we saw Ray actually really develop something?
That's
when he developed
to put the fire totem back together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
but that
even
was
that wasn't
off of
and
someone
even
else's.
that he didn't do very well because he was screwing around with a magic item and not a piece of technology.
Exactly. And someone else gave him the formula.
Exactly.
That's right.
And before that, the last time we saw him do anything was when he had his mind blanked, he was in an alternate reality, and his instincts took over, and he built the gun to zap them back. But even that wasn't intentional. We haven't seen Ray beating an inventor scientist in a long, long time.
We had his dating app after that, actually.
That was
awful. But he wasn't a developer.
One thing to keep in mind, anytime you have an ensemble like this, each person has to take, each of the characters has to take some role.
And he's
sort
of the
he's the heart. He's the
character.
heart of the team.
Brandon
that's what
was
he
talking
is.
Brandon was talking about that yesterday. Like, he even said he was brought specifically into Arrow originally, and I don't understand this because I didn't find this about Ray on Arrow, to be the comedy. But they said that what he said yesterday, too, the transition to Legends that's always supposed to have been his role, is to be the comedic light. So it's like, yes, they tell you he's this genius, but it's almost like they never actually, that wasn't really his purpose. That's his backstory, but his purpose is to be someone that makes everything light.
But when you apply for a job and they tell you it's this, and you get in there and they hand you a broom.
Yes.
That's kind of what they did.
Yeah, but even on Arrow, when he was originally paired with Felicity, they wanted them to seem almost twin-like in a way that
And even Oliver even remarked on it. It's like you and Ray can be related.
Yeah, so Ray was more of a comedic balance to Felicity, where Oliver was a darker other half of Felicity. So I see maybe he's a comedy. For a show as dark as Arrow, he's comedy. But for Legends, he's just average.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's goofy, and he's like, I don't know, I just really wanted more. I want more from him.
I just want to hold him tight,
It was shown.
So can fill that role on a team, be more the science side.
And it was shown most starkly when, in the Lucas episode. There was almost no difference in Ray. The only thing he lacked was the genre references. And that made you realize, okay, this Ray is almost exactly the same, except he doesn't know about Star Wars. That's that's awful. He's still brilliant. He's still at least a medical doctor, so he at least got through college. Even without George Lucas's work, he still should have been. I mean, heck, he got completely mind wiped down to a janitor, and he still built the gun. So, there's been some real miscues on Ray.
Yeah, and as much as I love Zara, and I adore Zara, they seem to have put her in the role of ship's engineer instead of Ray. And I thought that would have been a perfect transition if we had to lose Jackson, is to give someone else who knows about machines and how things work, instead of training somebody who's never had anything to do with anything.
Yeah, because she's a hacker. Zari's a hacker.
Well, where she's a hacker from so far in the future, that the stuff that she would be working with, as far as the normal everyday technical stuff, would be kind of out of her range. Ray, on the other hand, has walked through all of it all the way up to that point. It's, and I don't know if we've got a problem with the showrunner. I don't know if we've got a problem with the writing team. But if they don't course correct soon, they may have a problem.
I think I'm the exact opposite. I sound like I'm the only person who wants Ray to stay exactly. I mean, yes, he can have growth, but I want him to stay exactly as he is. He is the heart and soul of that team. He brings in the Superman that he played, obviously. He brings in that, he's the Mr. Rogers.
The Boy Scout.
He's the Boy Scout. He is the one who reminds the team, if they're going to start veering off into the dark. I mean, Sarah can definitely veer dark. Can veer dark. Many of them can. He's the one that they can all look up to and say, but we're heroes and we want to be like that guy. If he does nothing else and he reminds them of who they want to be, that to me is enough. And I just love Ray as he is. And I think this next season with Stein gone, we're going to get more of the inventor. And with Nora, I mean, Nora's going to be back. We're going to have that relationship explored, which I'll admit.
$10 they're getting together.
Yeah.
I don't think so, because I think that's the predictable way of going.
Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday. Like for them to tease it and to kind of like draw you in with
That's
it,
the predictable
but
thing.
then to not actually do it would be the unpredictable side. So
They just hinted at it so much with the episode where Damien Dark was basically just put between
Warner Brothers products
a
don't
married
have a
couple.
history of backdating.
No.
They are 4-color.
It's not even what we see. It's just I think it's predictable to put Brandon and Courtney together.
Yeah.
That's why I think I don't know.
Like I said, I went into it not realizing the two of them were married. And I was sitting there thinking, they have such great chemistry together.
They have great chemistry together.
This really works.
Not realizing why. And then once I found out, it's like, well, that makes perfect sense. But at least it showed. I mean, I didn't go into with preconceived notions. It just really came across well, which is a rare thing in Hollywood, to find characters that just fit
Well, when
together
you
so
think
well.
about it, Legends does typically do the unexpected. They made Beebo the superhero. They will not put them together just as a cruel joke. Like, that's funny. They're not getting together.
Well, one place where I really noticed that was kind of in the father-in-law discussions he kept having with Dark. That was what you want to talk about comedy. That was gold.
The torture scene.
Oh yeah,
The torture scene is one of the best.
I mean, in which Ray gave lip service to being scared of it, but you could tell he was like, well, this is what I got to do to save everyone. I guess I'm in. And it's like, you're with Damien Dark, and that's his daughter, and Ray's just like, yep, sure. It's like, Boy Scout, got it. He really still he acts like he's invulnerable. He really does. He's almost Daredevil level no fear. And even the ones where he says stuff about, I'm not sure about this. There's not really I'm not terrified about this.
Doesn't seem like a good idea.
It's just like, this is a bad idea. But okay.
But he went through these dramatic events where he was literally erased from the world.
Yeah.
And after that, it's like whatever. I went for the worst part. The worstest part from that is just die.
They all should have an awful lot of PTSD stacked up by now. All of them. I mean, because they have been through stuff that no mortal should be going through. And they've come out the other side.
The best.
So.
Yeah. Does anyone notice just what a great relationship Ray has with Gideon? The ship really likes Ray.
Yeah.
Ship doesn't really like a lot of people other than
Sarah
and Sarah and Ray.
And Jax when he was.
And Jax. But we didn't see Jax really interact.
Yeah, we did when they were in Rip's mind.
Well, okay, that's true. But other than that, though, we didn't, on a day-to-day basis. Jax wasn't really having a lot of conversations with her. Oh, yeah.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
I don't think she's a big fan of Zari either after the whole hacking.
Because she keeps poking in her system.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Having Zari as the engineer seems really abusive to Gideon to me. Because the way she fixes things is she tears the wiring out of them, and then she solders a couple things and says, okay, I got manual control, and Gideon's like, one day.
Not waking up one day.
I control environmental systems, right? So
She could just broadcast her dreams. Because she records all their dreams while they sleep.
Okay, so that's a little creepy. No, that's way creepy.
I mean, they said it, though.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about Damien.
Damien.
And it's funny is that if you've seen me on panels before, you guys know that I love dark characters. And I have loved the growth that the CW has taken that character from when he first appeared and was just a guy that I really intensely disliked with Arrow. He was
chaotic,
terrible. And they really they fleshed him out on Legends in a way that I really enjoyed.
The alignment shift is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
because
I had a lot more sympathy for him.
Yeah, he went all the way from chaotic neutral or chaotic evil through chaotic neutral, and he's actually bordering on chaotic good at this point.
Yes.
I think I've heard that from most people about disliking him at the beginning. I could not stand the character on Arrow. Not the actor. The actor's a great actor. The character was lousy.
Awful.
And when I heard that he was going to be one of the Legion of Doom in the second season of Legends, a season I was not looking forward to because of the first season, I was like, oh crap, here we go.
He was a real pastiche. He was a cardboard cutout villain when he started.
And it worked so well.
And it wasn't until Legends that he got to the point or they started writing him to the point where he was actually someone that if you got trapped with him down in the cave-in, you wouldn't want to just cut your own throat.
And that's why he bothered me so much, because on the DC does villains really well, and he just seemed done half-assed and just, like you said, a one-dimensional cutout.
Yeah.
And his growth this year, I really enjoyed him. I enjoyed the scenes he was in, because he was so much fun, and he was kind of evil, and he was self-serving and an egomaniac.
Let's talk about Return of the Mac.
Yes.
That's my
Man, when they kick that song, and he's just casually going, this, it's like, I'm back. You don't know me, but you're going to. Watch this. I think I may make you a dog. And we know the heroes are getting beaten, but we're just sitting back and going, hey, I'm okay with this, surprisingly.
Television.
I love it.
But again, they gave him humor.
Yeah.
And this is what lacking from Arrow. This is what somewhat lacking from the Flash. This is absolutely lacking on the Supergirl. I mean, there's no humor in Supergirl.
It's all terrified humor on those shows. It's gallows humor. They're all the humor only comes out when they are utterly horrified or terrified, and their brains don't know what to do, so they make a joke. Whereas they actually do comedic episodes on this series, and they should do a lot more on the others, and they've got the room to do it on the others, but they're just not doing it because they've got ensemble casts on those other shows that are brilliantly comedic. We've seen it. We've seen hints of it. And we know they do it, and we've seen them off camera, interviews and things like that, and we know that they're funny. And they're not being allowed to do that. And it'd be one thing, okay, Supergirl, is a subset of Superman, got to be kind of serious, sure. But not that serious, and there's a lot of things that I would poke fun at in that show. There's a lot of people who are really being they're really full of themselves on that show.
Martian Manhunter's the funniest one on
the show.
my
God!
Like you're
John,
like really?
The funniest moments are with John.
Yeah,
but he should be, because back in the Giffen era of Justice League International and all, Martian Manhunter, he was a straight man, but he was the funniest character in that era, and I think that's what they're.
If you could do what he did, wouldn't you be the funniest guy? I can phase through walls. I can go.
I can turn into anyone and pop out.
I can turn into anyone. I can read everybody's mind.
Yeah.
What kind of practical joker is that guy? Almost as bad as Superman would be if he had a funny bone.
So I do think they want to give each one of these shows their own identity. While I'd love to have more and more and more legends, Arrow is the dark one.
Yeah.
Flash is the straight out adventure superhero.
Arrow's the golf one.
That's what appeals to me so much.
Supergirl has become the socially relevant show to bring up all the social issues, and then Legends fun.
You watch Gotham, and Gotham is a pretty dark, but they managed to work in that humor too with the characters.
Most of it's shock humor, though. You go, did they just do that? Okay.
Robin Taylor is funny.
Yeah.
He is brilliant as Penguin, and I'm glad when they took Damien Dark and made him more of an entertaining villain, someone that you enjoy disliking.
Yes, he's still killing someone, but he's making quips while he's doing it.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch. Barrowman seemed kind of stoic next to him when those guys were palling around, and Barrowman's like all grumpy. I'm like, since when is Barrowman grumpy? Wow. And so that's how far that they've evolved his character, that he is the wisecracking, quicker-witted guy than you in any room. And it's like, that's a long way.
It's hard. The actor himself is clearly knows his role and is having fun with it. And it just comes through.
Scenery, too.
You can always tell.
And that's the biggest word for this entire series and season is just fun.
Yeah.
They knew how to have fun. Arrow, the entire season, they were losing, and then they lost. And Flash.
And
then they lost.
I couldn't watch Flash. It became so painful. And I came back to it afterwards, but it got so, when they were always losing, and it was depressing. So, and I liked Legends for
Actually, it's our fault. For 10 last years, everybody were saying we want a darker show. Like right around BSG, where everybody in the internet, everybody is hero. This we're saying we want darker and darker and darker, and this is what they give to us because we asked for that. And I think it's the climate of the world.
I think that has a lot to do with it.
It's hard to be funny, in a world that has these things going on that are just so horrifying.
But in typical fan fashion, we get what we ask for, and we're unhappy with it.
Welcome to fandom.
I know. I mean, it's a
I just do think they took it too far.
We said we want it dark, but we don't want to feel like that we want to throw the TV off the window.
I want to watch Arrow when I do, so.
Maybe not kill you, but make a joke while he's doing it.
Right. Yeah.
But I did find it, to return back to Damien Dark, in Arrow he was pretty much, a one-note character. Except for one thing. There was one scene when Oliver and company saved his family's life. And Damien at that point said, I'll give you a week to live before I kill you. And I think I kind of feel almost like his entire role in season 3 of Legends was built around that. They said, if nothing else, this is a man that loves his family, that loves his daughter, and that's
a lever.
The human.
That's something
and that's what made him really relatable as well, is because you have this thing that he's working on saving, and that is his family. And, he'll do whatever it takes, and for everyone, that's kind of a common thing, we'll do anything we can for those we love. And that's kind of how, I hated Damien Dark and Arrow. Yeah. Absolutely hated. Yeah. But yet when it comes to Legends, I'm like, he's a why do I like him?
Mm-hmm. They managed to come up with an even bigger tool than that Damien Dark for Arrow. They were just nosediving for the deep dark waters. And so they had to outdo Damien Dark at his utterly most despicable. And I think, like he said, they gave us what we asked for in spades, and I think that's why we're looking at this polar opposite Arrow, and apparently it's just gonna get worse this season.
This season actually, it looks good because it's different than it's been for 6 seasons.
We've already done our heroes in jail, though.
I'm ignoring any preview, so I'm going into that. I'm very excited.
I was like, let's talk about Legends, though.
I know. Hold on. Yeah, let's go back.
I actually was wondering what you guys thought of the whole Ava reveal.
It was weird. They just came out of nowhere.
I thought it was cool. Yeah. I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was different.
I want to know more.
And at what point do you get to that point?
What you think of I'm a huge fan of Mick Rory. His beginning to now he's so different because they always forget that he spent hundreds of years with the Time Bureau, with the Time Masters.
Everybody does.
Everyone does. I don't.
Including Nick every so often.
Yeah, it's like, I grew. Yeah. But his character arc is just incredible.
I think part of that was when they rescued him as a child. Because, he had to talk with him. He said, listen.
Well, and not only that, when they go back to World War II, was it Vietnam?
Vietnam. Welcome to the Jungle.
When they speak to his dad, Mick had this really hard life, mostly because of his parents' abuse. And I think that when maybe they finally talked to the dad, that maybe that helped kind of change Mick's life a little bit. So maybe we'll see that in this coming season. But as Mick, in general, to me, he's the humor element. I like his dark sense of humor. And when he comes up with these quick one-liners, I'm like,
It should be cheesy. Your fault for getting all this dark stuff.
It probably is. It's my little emo phase from college.
He's easily the darkest member of the team.
He's picked up the torch for Captain Cold, is what he did.
Yep.
He's honoring his friend. You could tell he's even starting to talk like it.
Mick and Rory Rory and Zara, my new favorite couple.
I would like that.
Rory and Zara now.
Mick and Zari.
I think I could ship it.
Because when they did the grandma thing,
Rory and Zari,
and she was on Ramadan, fasting for Ramadan, he kept trying to feed her.
I love the Ava Sharp character, and I am biased because I'm a huge Ava Lance fan, but in general, it looks like the Time Bureau is going to expand and have a bigger role in this coming season. So how do you feel about that group sort of coming to prominence? Maybe a little bit more Gary, maybe not.
Yes, more Gary.
More Gary. Let's bring him back as a series regular.
The Time Bureau and Ava sort of running that as a narrative thing.
Yeah, it does look like they're going to be a much bigger part, but no longer as the antagonists, no longer the ones that are trying to put them out of business.
All right, fine, you did it.
All the controls that the Time Bureau was instituting to kind of keep the timeline on track are gone.
Yeah.
They got shattered into pieces almost as bad as the Time Masters. And so I think we're going to see the roles of the time of the time agents starting to morph and the people starting to change a bit because their pasts are no longer off limits, and there's got to be more ripple effects than we're seeing. More unobvious, small ripple effects that are starting to pop up everywhere. And I think this season they've got this whole box and they're like, okay, now. And it's all going to just spill out, and we're going to see people just not really be what on the road that they were headed down, because somebody finally puts that final piece and yanks it out of the Jenga tower, and everything spills over, and we're going to get a complete rejiggering of a lot of the characters that we've been made dissatisfied with. I think there may be some intent with them saying, "Yeah, let's make them real
So they're
pissed."
looking to do like maybe a rewrite of some of the characters
Right.
that we might have had issues with
by basically getting them further and further in the hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one more thing. I truly don't believe that Rip gave up on his family. And the whole Time Bureau and the letting the legends go is his long con to get his family back. So this is what happens. He's slowly bringing people in the...
He's building.
He's building something.
Yeah.
He's bringing pieces together, and then suddenly, like you said, it will be a rip, and suddenly everything will change.
Right, because if he gets the family back, what does that change? Because that was that was the core of the show.
That would create.
It wasn't, but a lot of people didn't really vibe with it.
That didn't work, and Rip.
A lot of season 1 didn't work because of Rip. I mean, I like Rip. I'm arguably a Rip apologist. Like Jordan, who's listened to my podcast, can probably attest to that. But that's a lot of what didn't work with season 1, and I liked how they tried to like redeem him a little bit, and then they would kind of bring him back to the bad guy, and they did the whole thing, and then they finally redeemed him at the end of the season, like actually redeemed him, where he sacrificed himself for the team. So as much as I kind of would love to see Rip again, because I do really like Rip, and I'm kind of hoping he's not dead, if they do bring him back, there's a part of me that realizes that'll take away from that redemption again.
And Rip has always been probably one of the darkest characters. I mean, people don't think about it because he's not used that much in the comics. He's always been one of the darkest characters in a similar way to Constantine. Constantine's always been known to just use people and for the better good. I mean, okay, I like you, you're my friend, but if you have to die to save, a few million...
I'll make the knife quick.
Yeah, do it quick. Rip does the same thing, but not in the magical world. It's usually more science and time travel and all the rest. You don't see it as graphic. And he doesn't have that fun personality of Constantine, so people don't latch onto him as well. But I think it's one of those things. He's probably just accepted the family. You're right. It didn't work in the show, so they can just write that as a part of the character. He accepted it. He's moved on. They'll probably leave him dead, is my guess, unless they ever get a chance to bring in Booster Gold, and then maybe there'll be something where Rip and Booster get a moment together. That'd be a hope.
Well, is Arthur back on, not on Broadway, but he was on the West End in London. Does anyone know if he's back on that? That's why he disappeared for the first half of season 2. Arthur Darvill, he's a big...
He's a big deal.
Yeah,
I have the cast list because I can't remember names. I'm so bad at names.
Arthur Darvill plays Rip Hunter.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big Doctor Who fan, so everything with this is very reminiscent to me of several Doctor Who episodes that Rory Williams was in. It is,
which is
why and everything is all wibbly wobbly, which is why I feel that Arthur will be back as Rip in some capacity. So
he could be. Yeah.
It could be a passport.
Beebo would be very Doctor Who.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, we mentioned Constantine a few times, and he's great. In my opinion, he's great as a guest star, but he's going to be a regular next season. And I think we've all agreed that we like the tone of the show being that lighter comedic nature. Constantine, I love his show. I'm sad that it was canceled, but I'm worried that his introduction and the storylines that come with him are going to shift everything in a direction which is...
I think the opposite is going to happen. I think they're going to rip Constantine right up out of the bowels of hell because he's in the middle of all this just potential comedy. Here he is. He's already banged Sarah. Okay, so that started the funny, and her wisecracking at him, and he's like, "What? I'm the one who does the wisecracks." She played it.
It's going to be interesting to see how they interact. You're right. It's going to be very interesting because it is going to be a very magic-centered season. They've said that. Very magic-centered. He'll have a role. He won't feel out of place, but his character doesn't seem to fit in with the rest. And will they manage to fit it? Will he always seem like the outsider? I don't see him lasting more than one season on the show. I don't see how that
That
would
was never
last.
the plan for this show, though. It was supposed to be a revolving
Something
door of
like
characters.
That's right. It was originally supposed to all
Which
revolve.
I think is fine.
Yeah.
Well, he's certainly not a ship's captain.
No, well,
So-
I don't think he. Am I allowed to say this? I don't think he's not going to be on the Wave Rider. Like he's
not a team player.
No, like
No.
it's
Oh, God,
been
no.
like in articles and stuff. Like he will not live and breathe on the Wave Rider. Like he's going to be like their like a home base, like a consultant, like a go-to. He's going to be like heavily involved in the
I think he's a
seasons.
paradox solver because magic can get around the hard science that you smack up into that wall where you've screwed something up in time. I think
Like
the
he'd
kind of
feel
magic,
shockwaves or
yeah,
something that other people would not
exactly.
be able to see
He would spot stuff like that early, maybe even earlier than Gideon would, because he's kind of linked in with the entire multiverse as far as his awareness of the way things flow, and so he's almost kind of like a really grumpy Guinan. Really grumpy Guinan. Really grumpy, really horny Guinan. So he's a guy with magic. He could say, "Wait a minute, there may be a way, but you're not going to like it."
Like with the D&D stuff that they did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah.
That was so great.
What I'm afraid that they will be they will be running around. He will I need an eye of a newt. The real eye.
I'm not afraid of that. That would be hilarious.
From 1600s, and that's what I'm afraid of. That
It'll be a quest.
It will be a delivery service for the Constantine.
But that would not be a terrible season for
I think that's part of what works.
Or the delivery
They're definitely not gonna.
Well, I think that's part of what worked in this season, as we compared it to Arrow and Flash and everything else, is they actually had a mission that you could break into small increments. It's very much old school comic style, where they always broke up into pairs and went off and did individual pieces. And this one, he was getting, almost like Avengers: The Infinity Stones. This was getting each of the totems,
right?
And sometimes they won, and sometimes they lost, and sometimes they won and lost.
That wasn't similar at all.
But having that breakup of individual missions works so well. Yeah, sending them out to, okay, I can stop this, but only if I have the Eye of Newt or the, whatever, fill in the blank, and they have to go and not screw up time, but steal Excalibur or something along those lines.
Because he'd be like a good foil for Ray, because he is like amoral.
He's going to go great with Mick.
Yeah.
They're going to be best friends.
I think he may go too far for Mick. I think Mick may at some point go, "Whoa, hold it, wait, you're going to do what?"
It's really good impression.
Look, I'm a dick. What? That?
He'll be the voiceover. and he
I knew we were in
great
trouble.
Comic timing too. He delivers the best lines, the best looks, with the minimum amount of work.
He doesn't need to move much.
Yeah. I adore him.
He's my second favorite.
Yeah.
So, with the addition of the magic, because they've got to have something to deal with Dark's almost unlimited access to magic. I mean, Dark was time traveling as a trivial matter.
That was because of the stone that Malas gave him.
This is true, but
he still has it.
Yeah, not only that.
No, he gave it to Nora. Ray gave it to Nora.
But here's the thing: every time Dark gets a hold of an artifact, he learns tons about it, and he keeps it. So, and Dark always goes, and he uses the items he gets, and he goes and gathers intel with them. Like the location of whatever, or I'm going to learn this spell that was previously lost to time, and he comes back with more knowledge.
He could go back and kill Ra's al Ghul and become Ra's al Ghul, which is what he had always wanted.
Yeah, and then find that, God, I hate this. That would be a good episode where he was like, he gets what he thought he wanted, and that kind of happened with the Spear of Destiny. He was like, really? Do we need the speedster? Come on, I could kill him. He's not that fast. I can tell where he's going to be. And you know that discussion was going on somewhere. And the speedster can't be everywhere at once. So, I mean, and I think they all kind of universally, heroes and villains, agreed that, that whole thing was a bad idea on both sides. And, it cost all of us a lot. And with his daughter in the position she's in now, he may be the not necessarily evil rogue element, but the rogue element that's trying to correct the timeline back to something that is at least not so unpalatable.
I'm pretty sure
No, I'm pretty sure he's gone.
Yeah.
Well, there's gone and there's gone.
He was killed by Beebo first. That's a pretty permanent death.
The only person who can keep bringing back is Sarah Lance. I mean, there has to be a limit.
There has to be a limit.
I'm wondering how you all feel about sort of Nate's journey, because I think about a character who probably needs a reboot the most as you sort of talk about resetting these characters. Like, Nate feels like he's in this weird space in the show where he was introduced and he was supposed to be a brilliant historian. And you all talk about Ray losing into his intelligence, but Nate has become like the lunk on the show, like
he's the
he's around in the office.
Stoner.
Guy, and now losing Amaya.
He's just
really what even is Nate's?
Yeah, he's actually more of a sad sack than Ray.
He's
and that's hard to get to.
He's at least been able to still consult with his books, and you've seen him in the library doing more stuff, in my opinion, than you've seen Ray in the lab.
But his role is becoming more and more irrelevant because everything he learned as history is starting to change, and because he's got he's insulated from it enough to where
he remembers how it should be.
And that's kind of the point, because Gideon's not reliable anymore ever since the Time Masters. She can't say, "Oh, this is how it's supposed to be."
Right.
She sees what it quote unquote is. And then, he's the only one with the knowledge to know what it should be.
But he's going to have a focus. He's going to have a focus this next season. Is it father or grandfather, whichever it is joining the show at least? Whatever. So that's going to help. That'll give him something, because for the longest, he was kind of. I mentioned Booster earlier.
Yeah.
Ray was originally supposed to be Ted Kord. He was supposed to be Blue Beetle, but DC wouldn't let them use Blue Beetle. So he.
Because they had great plans for him, right?
Yeah, great plans. And so but they still wrote him in a lot of ways very much Blue Beetle-like. Yeah. So Nate and Ray together in their first season together really were the Booster and Beetle pair. That was their role. And as soon as Ray had something else to focus on, even if a lot of people felt like this character, diminished in one way, he became that heart. He became the one for the funny torture scenes and to go after Nora and save the bad guy even, and all that kind of stuff. As soon as he was doing that, that was part of where Nate lost something. So hopefully they bring it back. But I think he didn't have a huge role, but having that history, which was Booster always had the history. So that was
now with Nate, we did see a difference when during the Lucas episode, because wow,
he was an idiot.
He went full on big dumb jock, and it's like.
By that logic, wouldn't he also be aware of any changes? What isn't his history skill? Wouldn't it remain intact? Because
I agree with you, and that's part of what I didn't like about the Lucas episode, because historically, because of their presence on the Wave Rider, they have been pretty close to immune to the changes in the timeline, and you kind of have to have that in a time travel show. Except in a catastrophic situation, which you need to create drama. But
that was more important.
It was more important, but it's like and why were they the only ones who got affected? I mean, because let's face it, all of them would have been affected by something as major as basically a dumbing down of the entire space-time continuum because George Lucas's stuff wasn't there.
But you're assuming that George Lucas was an influence on every single person interested in science, which I can tell you is not the case. I didn't watch Star Wars growing up. I had a degree in physics. I would still have a degree in physics if George Lucas didn't exist because he wasn't an influence.
Well, it was fan service to him.
It was absolutely fan service.
Yeah, it was fan service. But what I'm saying though is, if it's big enough to affect Ray, and big enough to affect Nate to those degrees, and everyone else is like, "What's wrong with you two?" I'm like, That's really specific and targeted. So I think they also need to
representation.
Yeah.
They just had to represent.
They're the nerds.
They're expected to be the ones that are big into Star Wars and stuff.
I actually had a question. So Macy Richardson Sellers, who plays Amaya, is going to be coming back as a different character. Her name is Charlie, I believe, from what I've seen. I'm interested to know what you guys think about bringing an actress back as a different character. I know I have my theories that she's some distant relative from the future, but
Charlie.
I believe that is her name. There was a post that had her name on it. But she's not Amaya anymore, but she's still on the show.
I think that maybe, I hadn't heard anything about that. But, even bringing in previously used actors for new characters, there's a lot of ways that can go. It can be a distant relative, or even just a doppelganger, someone that looks like her. But I think maybe by bringing her in as another character could be very troublesome for Nate.
There's always Earth too, and Earth.
All
the Earths. It could be an alternate.
Yeah. It could.
Forgetting multiverse stuff.
Yeah, well, because it doesn't really.
Because we keep forgetting.
We
keep forgetting that's accessible. And at some point, that ship is going to get smacked sideways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They keep screwing around with the time drive. They keep taking hits while they're in the middle of the vortex. At some point they're going to exit where they are not supposed to be.
That's what you would think. The producers have said that because time travel creates so much complexity, they want to avoid that anytime they can. And whether they stick with that rule or not, anything happens.
Hold on, I need to get the ice pick.
They're for sure just trying to have fun with it. And if it comes down to having fun or making sure that you have to make sense, they're going to err on the side of fun.
She's been waiting.
I was wondering what you guys thought about the dropping in of Wally West Flash and then dropping right back out of
It was sad.
It was sad. I really liked Wally. I liked
him on the Flash though.
Well, I actually liked him better on Legends. He felt out of place. He was out of place on the Flash because they didn't know what to do with him.
Right.
The writers
Too many
didn't,
speedsters.
and it was just kind of sad for me because I really had been enjoying that character.
You can't really account for when an actor decides not to do it anymore, though.
Yeah.
And because that happens. That happens in shows, and unfortunately, there usually isn't a lot of notice, even though there may be a lot of build-up.
But I don't think there's a lot of filming that goes on in Vancouver. If he got hired for something else,
he wants to do his music.
He wants out.
He's out.
Oh.
Yeah,
well, I think he did say
but that
he
was
may
only
come back
recent.
He said he'd come
potentially.
back.
He definitely
Because
said
he's
that
in the first couple of
He's
episodes.
open.
Because he's already there.
So
He
Kid
has
Flash
some stuff.
would always be around if he was needed or something like that.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's nice.
But I mean, that monkey wrench is a lot of things in several shows. So I guess, and that makes it harder to plot out a season line for all the shows in which he might show up.
Yeah.
So it adds a degree of complexity as to what they can. They've got one hand tied because since they've agreed that he could come back, now they're like, and if he decides to come back, what's our plan? So they've probably got a whole team sitting there going, yeah, we're the guys who are going to write for him. We'll just call us when minutes. We'll figure it out.
Legends had a problem with speedsters. I think with both of them.
So much power.
It's too much.
So much power.
Too much power. You don't need a wave rider to travel in time. So suddenly it's everything is obsolete, and it's killed a little bit a show. This, and I love Legend of Doom, but the speedster, they shouldn't be speedsters there.
And the thing about the speedsters was they had a check on it with the the Speed Force sending nearly unstoppable things to kill you if you screwed around, but then they wrote that loophole for Reverse Flash. And so he's able to run around. He stayed around for 4 seasons between 2 shows.
It's like no continuity
with different faces.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. The speedsters are a problem, and
And it's been there for decades in
Yeah.
comics too, the exact same problem. And
What do you do with Superman? Really, what do you do with Superman?
Okay.
The only thing you can do is throw kryptonite at him in the story, or throw in something that strips him of his power.
That's why I love Captain Cold Around so much, because
Yes.
that was one of the few things that he could use his gun to stop a speedster. And that was his whole, there was a whole part of that on The Flash when he was on that.
Here, time.
It's time.
All right.
It's time.
So we want to thank y'all for being here. Thank you. All hail Beebo.
And that's a wrap. It's a little bit of an abrupt ending. They were literally waving in the back of the room trying to get us to stop talking. We probably could have gone on for another hour. We didn't even cover on probably half of the things we should have touched on, but it's hard. It's like herding cats. You know, you've got 5 people up there, you've got an audience kind of shouting at you, and I mean, you heard it. It's a ton of fun, though. Ton of fun. So thanks for listening. Let me know if you have any questions, or check out DragonCon at dragoncon.org, and maybe I'll see some of you there next year. That would be pretty cool if we could get a Legends of Tomorrow / Tomorrow's Legends official fan meetup going on there. Keep an eye out for another bonus episode. I may be releasing the Legion panel that I did, and then Martin the Flash, we will be back. Probably just prior to the night of the premiere. We're going to try and release a season 3 wrap up, season 4 predictions, where are we going kind of episode. So, you know, those are always fun. It'll be nice after a long break for me. It's nice to get back behind the mic. It'll be even better to be behind the mic with the Flash himself. So until next time, this is Harley Quinn. I'm out.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network.